Hello, good afternoon. My name is Lucy Blake-Fagiani, and this is an Art for All group with St Christopher's, which we have every Tuesday afternoon. Normally we have it in the Anniversary Centre in St Christopher's Hospice, but over the course of lockdown, we've been hosting these online. So thank you very much for joining. Please excuse any background noise you might hear. I'm currently in the hospice at the moment, but I'm also very close to some train lines, which might mean that you hear a fast service going to London Bridge. Today, what I'd like to talk about as a project is the idea of making art based on poetry and our favourite poems. And some of the art groups I work with over the course of the week, we have Zoom groups that are open for anyone to join, community members, and also patients, carers, family, friends of people who might have been patients in St Christopher's Hospice. We also have private Zoom groups that are just for patients as well. So we've got a lot going on. But one of the projects we've been discussing is looking at our favourite poems and thinking about how we would make artwork around them. And I wanted to share with you very quickly one of my favourite poems and some artwork that I've made around it, just very briefly, and give you some art ideas of your own that you might want to have a go at. So I will read out the poem that I worked on. It's a slightly long poem, but hopefully not too long. Oh, here's train. So hopefully that's not too loud. So the poem I'd like to talk to you about today is called Hamnavo, and it's by a poet who was called George Mackay Brown, who lived in Orkney in Scotland. And he wrote a lot of poems about Orkney and his experiences of growing up in Orkney, but this is my favourite one of his poems. Hamnavo is the old Viking name for the town of Stromness, and in this poem George Mackay Brown describes a day in Hamnavo and what happens and the people he sees and his family there. So, Hamnavo by George Mackay Brown. My father passed with his penny letters through closes opening and shutting like legends. When barbarous with gulls, Hamnavo's morning broke on the Salton Tar steps. Herring boats, puffing red sails, the tillers of cold horizons leaned down the gull-gaunt tide and threw dark nets on sudden silver harvests. A stallion at the sweet fountain dredged water and touched fire from steel-kissed cobbles. Hard on noon, 4 bearded merchants past the pipe-spitting pierhead strolled, holy with greed, chanting their slow, grave jargon. A tinker keened like a tartan gull at couth-hung doors. A crofter lass trudged through the lavish dung in a dream of cornstalks and milk. In the Arctic whaler, 3 blue elbows fell, regular as waves, from beards spumy with porter till the amber day ebbed out to its black dregs. The boats drove furrows homeward, like ploughmen in blizzards of gulls. Gallic fisher girls flashed knife and dirge over drifts of herring, and boys with penny wands lured gleams from the tangled veins of the flood. Houses went blind at one steep close, for a grief, by the shrouded nets. The kirk, in a gale of psalms, went heaving through the tumult of roofs, freighted for heaven, and lovers unblessed by steeples lay under the buttered bannock of the moon. He quenched his lantern, leaving the last door. Because of his gay poverty that kept my sea-pink innocence from the worm and black wind, and because under equality's sun all things were now to a common soiling. In the fire of images, gladly I put my hand to save that day for him. Yeah, slightly long, but I think a very beautiful poem, and describing his memory of a day, or a composite memories of days, and his father weaving through the streets of this ancient town, and the sea and the land, and the idea, I think, at the very end of kind of putting your hand, almost like when you're looking into the fire, to see the images that you might see in the dancing flames, but almost you're putting your hands into the fire to pull out those memories to save. So I decided to take the poem quite literally, and I did a sketch, very, very quick sketch. I might go over this and I might add a bit more, or I might leave it as is, of the town of Hamnavoe. And I thought about the phrases in the poem, so a tumult of roofs, all these different roofs, and the winding streets, and the tangled veins of the flood, so kind of a slight tangling here, and the sea going right up, and the play of light. And I thought I'd keep a fairly restrained colour palette, so I've just gone with kind of really greens and oranges. And I thought of the idea of maybe making it look like the sun was hitting the town. Maybe it's in the morning, or maybe it's in the evening in the poem, because we move through the day. And I used water pastels, so they're almost like oil pastel crayons, but when you add water to them, they turn into kind of watercolors, so they're really nice to use. And if you're able to get to the shops now that more shops are open, you might be able to pick up some of these, so they're very nice to use. Also, I was just going to say, when you're actually making an image, you might find that there are bits that you don't like, or bits that you kind of want to change. So this has been trimmed down because this bit here, I didn't like these lines so much, so I thought they were a bit much. So I cut those off, and I also, there was some that was up at the top that I kind of thought, no, that's actually, I don't need that actually in the image, because some of image making is as much about what you leave out as about what you keep in. So yeah, and with this I could make it much more detailed, or I could make it even more abstracted. I could just have a line in the middle of orange, green, blue. Maybe think about kind of mid-century painters like Ben Nicholson, and maybe there's something a little bit of Being by the Sea, the painters at St Ives in Cornwall, and kind of real abstraction and real kind of minimalism. You could go with this, or you can make it really, really detailed and actually do a close-up of a close. So in Scotland, you'd call a narrow street a close. So maybe do a close-up of that and think about the nets, maybe add more and more detail. So yeah, that's my image for today. I'd love to hear any poems that you might want to share, and we're going to try and put some poems up that have inspired us in the hospice, and starting to put artwork up in the hospice again. So I hope you all have a restful week, and that some of the shops opening are useful for you, and I hope that you stay well, and yeah, look forward to speaking to you next week. All the best.